tonight in executive session. We're now ready to continue with the public portion of our meeting. We had public correspondence this week from Mrs. Sala relative to events of the last board meeting and to other board meetings. That has been answered by letter by our legal counsel, Ms. Grant. Now, the President's report, I want to talk a little bit about state testing. The State Board of Ed met last Wednesday, ostensibly to vote on a new proposal for state assessments and graduation requirements, and to give some clarity to the classes of 23 through 25 who don't yet know what their graduation requirements will be. There was animated discussion, mostly pro and against standardized testing, pro and against the idea of having a geometry test or not. And the upshot of quite a lot of animated discussion was that the State Board postponed their decision for 2 weeks. They have a November 6th deadline to make this discussion, so presumably they will have an emergency meeting to finally come to some kind of resolution about testing and graduation requirements. And that's the President's report. Superintendent?
Thank you. Just give you an update on construction at Ridgewood Avenue. We'll be moving forward on it. We're a little concerned about the boiler room being done on time before the weather changes. So on tonight's agenda, we're trying to reserve a temporary boiler. The temporary boiler won't be needed if the boiler room gets completed on time or if the weather stays warm. But we want to make sure if the weather does take a turn and it gets cold quick that we have something in place to heat the building. The temporary boiler would be placed out in front of Ridgewood Avenue. It would heat the water would run from, basically it's in a tractor trailer, pipes from the tractor trailer into our boiling room, into our piping system, and to heat the school. So best case scenario, we're not going to have to worry about it, but this is a precaution in case we do need it. Linden Avenue School and Forest Avenue School, the boilers are complete, but we're waiting for the unit ventilators to arrive, and that should happen within the next week, and they'll start installing. We can provide heat in those buildings still without the unit ventilators, where you use radiant heat that boilers would create from running water through the piping system, the convectors that are in the different classrooms. We just wouldn't have the blown heat out that happens in the classroom, which is what the unit ventilators produce. At Central, the playground is just like a day away. We had the core rubber installed on Friday and Saturday. It just has to sit for a few days. We could use it on Wednesday, but we're off Wednesday, so the students will be able to use the playground area on Thursday. Also tomorrow after school, we'll start installing new windows at Central School. The first floor, the ground level floor will be done first, the area that we're currently occupying. So we're very excited about that. Tonight we do have a presentation, the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide. Last week we had a parent presentation on how to raise resilient teens in challenging times. It was a terrific event. There were roughly about 40 parents there on Tuesday night. Susan Talone was there, and she's here tonight to present on Lifelines, which is a new curriculum program that we've adopted from grades 5 to 12. Susan, if you come up and tell us about the program in a little more detail, it would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Do you want me to stand here or here?
Yeah, wherever you're comfortable.
All right.
Where the microphone.
Yeah, that might be best.
Do I need a microphone?
It comes in handy.
It comes
this
in
room.
handy? All right. As you heard, my name is Susan Talone. I am the clinical director for the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide. And your school has adopted the Lifelines program into your school. And what that means is that it's a very, what we call best practice, evidence-based best practice suicide prevention program specifically for schools. And one of the reasons that it's so important is that we're seeing a very significant rise in numbers in terms of suicide completions in our younger population. We've seen a real rise with 10 to 14-year-old girls. We've even seen a rise between 5 to 10-year-olds in the emergency rooms. We also have a pocket of kids that we're really concerned about that are transitioning from high school into college, and we've seen an increase in completions with the inability to transition well. So I commend your school for bringing us in. It's a very big commitment for a school to take this on. So what it entails is we looked at your policies, your procedures, we gave you recommendations. We did a survey, what we called a readiness survey, to ask your staff, did they feel ready, where didn't they feel ready? And then we came in and we did 3 8-hour trainings, full-day trainings. The first training is what we call postvention, which is where we teach a school what to do in the aftermath of a tragedy. And it doesn't have to be a suicide. It could be the death of a teacher, it could be the death of a kid on a sports field. But whenever there's some kind of trauma in a school, you have to pay very close attention to children's reactions and the grief reaction so that you handle things appropriately and quickly without too much and without too little. So we did a lot of guidance with your crisis team on postvention and how to do that. And we also, our program has all kinds of, has a flash drive so that your principals and your administrators have all the forms necessary, God forbid there be a tragedy, on how to inform your community, your parents, and with best practice. The next day we come in and we do a program called intervention. Not the next day, but the next time you have us, because it's spread out. And intervention is where we really talk to your counseling staff and any key teachers that have that they sent to the training, that you kind of know your teachers that are the ones that the kids go to. And we talk to them about how to talk to kids about suicide. What do you do if a kid comes up to you, and how do you allow that conversation to be a conversation without shutting it down? Because most kids will tell a trusted adult. We're finding, the research has shown that kids talk to kids, and so if a friend comes to you about a friend, chances are they have been told by that friend in some way. And so we really need to start to listen to our kids and really talk to them about this in a casual, conversational way, without having them think that if they tell you, they're going to end up in the emergency room or something like that. So we're trying to get this to be a conversation and reduce the stigma, the shame of asking for help. So that's intervention. And then you get into your prevention, which is the actual curriculum. And we've done training with your teachers, and it's going to go into your health curriculum with the 5th grade. There's four classes, and the titles are like suicide isn't silly. And you know, we sort of go into it on a 5th grade level. And then there's the 7th grade that what do you do to help a friend, and how do you know when a friend is in trouble, and how do you seek help? And that curriculum you'll probably put it in 5th, 7th, maybe repeat it in 9th. And then your 12th grade curriculum has what we call transitions, like what happens when the unexpected happens. You know, kids always go off to college thinking that, you know, they have an idea of what's going to happen. Well, sometimes it doesn't go that well. And we want to prepare kids for, you know, what will happen if you get there and you don't like your roommate, and you don't feel good about your school, and you do get depressed or lonely. Where do you go? What do you do? So that kids are actually preparing for the unexpected. There's a lot of problem-solving skills that go into this curriculum, and talks about how to walk through a problem. What we know about suicide is that most kids, it's not a wish to end their life, it's the feeling that they have an unsolvable problem and they don't know what to do about it. They don't know how to solve the problem. So showing kids how to get to resources and ask for help and those kinds of things. So that is the prevention program. Then we give you a parent presentation, which is what we did, which you just spoke about, thank you, where we talk to the parents about maybe some of their anxieties about, you know, can talking about suicide plant the idea that's a myth that a lot of people believe still to this day, and it's actually quite the opposite. Talking about suicide reduces a child's ideation, because finally they have someone to talk to about it. If a child is feeling that way, talking about it isn't going to make them feel that way. If they're not feeling that way, talking about it isn't going to make them feel that way. It's just like sex education, you know. If you educate kids on sex, doesn't mean they're going to go out and have sex that night. So it's a matter of education. And really, we're really looking at a mass movement right now for the first time in education, because of, I think, you know, I've been doing this work a long, long time. And I've never seen, and I've been in education, I was a teacher for 14 years, school nurse. And I could not get this dialogue to enter a school, but now I think schools are recognizing that the mental health issues are really becoming paramount amongst the students. And we've really got to do something about it. Kids are coming to school very anxious. And the number one problem in suicide prevention is not depression, but anxiety. You know, so we're seeing a lot of that. So and you know, with school shootings and all of that, you know, kids just are on a higher level of alert. So I commend your school and parents for supporting this program. And I think that it's a program that will really change school culture. How it changes school culture is that the kids do not keep the secret any longer, and they have learned to, they are taught to go to their trusted adults. And then your faculty, the last leg of the training will be that we'll do a faculty training to teach them what does it mean to be a trusted adult, and how do you do that, and what do you do when a child comes up to you. Not that we want them to be psychologists, because we don't. We just want them to know enough to get that child to the professional help within the school, and then follow up with that child to make sure that that kid knows that they truly do care and they're not just being handed off. So that's the curriculum, and that's the program. Have any questions?
Okay, board members, do you have any questions?
Parents?
This
Any?
is, we have public comment in a few minutes, so
Okay.
if you would stay around for
Oh.
that, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anything else?
That's it.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is time for public comment. I thought the superintendent's report was going on. Audience members, if you have questions or comments on agenda items, which of course includes the presentation, make your way to the lectern and let us know what you think.
Greta Sawa, Glen Ridge. I enjoyed your presentation the other night very much, but something you said I really feel like I have to say. You mentioned that Glen Ridge has not been affected by teen suicide, you know, which I'm sure is the information you were given. It has. But the nature of this community is that stuff like that is hidden, buried. They won't admit it even to a professional such as yourself. It's toxic. And all your excellent presentations won't do any good until this community and this Board of Education acknowledge that there's bullying and there's suicide, and there has been. We're a small community, so it's rarer and it doesn't receive publicity, but it exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay, there is another public comment period at the end of the meeting. So we'll go on to our board liaison reports, because it is the first meeting of the month. So Michael's not here to start with. Anthony, anything to report? Heather, anything? Lyndon?
Yes, the Personnel and Policy Committee met last week to discuss several policy updates. The Glen Ridge Educational Foundation will be meeting next week on Tuesday. And last week, I attended the Grace Meet and Greet with Dirk and a number of administrators and staff members. It was really very well attended this year.
It was.
A lot of parents, a lot of staff members, and I think it was really a lovely night.
to send me the agenda with some comments. They had a number of committee reports. They're having a Halloween costume drive, which I thought was interesting, where people swap costumes, since costumes are expensive and kids grow out of costumes and other people need them. So I thought that was a good idea. They're having an author visit. Of course, the kitchen tour is coming up on the 20th, and I know that they're working very hard on that. It sounds like it's going to be a splendid event. Other than that, they thanked class parents for the school photos, this parent social, and the successful author visit. So that is the Ridgewood Avenue School report. And I will also give the negotiations report in the absence of Michael DeLue, who is not with us tonight. Negotiations is an ongoing process. Ours is as well. So we are still, Michael would be more articulate about this, but we are moving forward to hopefully to a resolution. And now, anything? Anything?
Yes. Two things. Just wanted to thank everyone who, on behalf of the Communications Committee, thank everybody who came out over the course of September to man and women the tables at all of the back-to-school nights. For taking the time. It's always a valuable way to have conversations with people in the community. And I also wanted to give a quick report about the home and school meeting, the high school home and school meeting. It was held on Friday, September 20th, and run by the new home and school president, Kristen Rundle. Mr. Lawler reported on Spirit Week, pep rally, the LGI room renovation, guidance presentations, the club fair, financial aid presentation, teen suicide prevention parent presentation, and information about baby consequences. Dr. Harris and Ms. Landgraber gave the middle school report covering map testing, overnight trips under consideration, testing schedules, middle school movie night on October 11th, middle school dance on October 25th, middle school read, which will be November 26th this year, and the book will be The Legacy of Anne Frank by Jillian Perry. Mr. Hill, our athletic director, reported on the updated athletic website, athletic schedules, homecoming game, which they won, congratulations, and dance that followed, and mentioned that winter sports sign-ups begin in October. The treasurer reported on the finances, and Kristen O'Neill talked about the fall photo fundraiser and the kitchen tour on October 20th from 10 to 4.
Teresa, any reports?
Forest actually had two meetings this last that they welcomed a number of employees. They talked about their new comprehensive math programs, a history science program. Chromebooks are now available at all grades, which is terrific. They had upgrades in security and safety as being had in terms of cameras and user management. They reviewed the basics of the harassment, intimidation, and bullying program. And actually last week had a week of respect to talk about and emphasize the good character and to reduce character efforts to reduce bullying. They are now doing weekly news flash. They had a terrific book fair, very active. They're having a social, parent social on October 10th. And one of my favorite events ever is the Festival of Jack-o'-lanterns on the 24th. I love that. That's when everybody does their pumpkin presentations. It's wonderful. So they're very good here.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have some administrative items. David, would you move the administrative items, please?
I move A1 through A3.
Okay, may I have a second? Second from Teresa. Any questions or comments on these policy changes, which are mostly a two-word policy in line with code? Questions or comments? Okay, if that is the case, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Ms. Boyle? Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Aye.
Mr. Romano? Ms. St. Palmer? Aye. Dr. Yaris Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye. Hey, Tracy, would you move the personnel items?
Yes, I move P1 through P13.
Seem to have lots of personnel lately. May I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or any comments or discussion on personnel-related items, we're confined to our executive session as per our policy. Barbara?
Mr. Bennett? Ms. Boyle? Ms. Boyle-Luigi? Aye. Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Aye.
Mr. Romano?
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubert?
Aye.
Dr. Yaros Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye. Okay, Heather, would you move the curriculum items?
Sure. I move C1 and C2.
May I have a second? Which one was the second?
Anthony.
Okay, Anthony. Any discussion about this long list of field trips? Can you just tell us, Barbara, the school bus evacuation drill, that's a mandated thing, right?
Yes.
And we have it how long? Any other questions or comments on the curriculum items? All right, Barbara, are you ready?
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Ms. Boyle-Luigi?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Aye.
Mr. Romano?
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubert?
Aye.
Dr. Yaros Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye. Okay, Paul, would you move the business items?
I'd like to move items B1 through B5.
All right, may I have a second?
Second.
Second, David. Any comments from business items before we move forward?
No, Mr. Phillips already addressed the temporary boiler.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded. No other comments? No, Carla, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Ms. Boyle-Luigi? Mr. Campbell?
Aye.
Ms. Lang?
Aye.
Mr. Romano?
Aye.
Ms. St. Aubert? Dr. Yaros Ramos?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Aye. All right, that brings us to the second public comment period for questions and comments on agenda or other items. Once again, if you have a question or comment, please make your way to the lectern. Questions or comments?
First, I want to welcome the Glen Ridge Police. I feel much safer, we all do when you're here. And it would be helpful when we're leaving if you could be near the stairwell too, because that's been an issue. But thank you for coming, and I hope you guys are here every single time. This administration, A1, all these first reading of revised policies and regulations, where does the public get copies of that?
Once they're passed by the board on the second reading, then they are up on the website under policies.
Well, why don't you post them under first reading so that the public could have a chance to comment on them too?
Do you have any additional comments before we give you an answer on that?
I haven't, yeah, I do have a few other
I
questions.
think let us hear all your questions and comments, and then we can answer them at the end.
Fifth grade students to visit historic Fort Lee on October 8th. Is that date correct? Because I have a fifth grader and he says he's had no permission slips or anything. So is that I know fifth graders go there, but is that a fictitious trip right now? Or what's the story with it?
Okay, well, we'll find that out.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments before we end?
Yes. Shelter in place. Got an email that it happened at Ridgewood. My Ridgewood student, who admittedly isn't there all day, said it didn't happen at Ridgewood. He may have missed it. But my middle school student says there was a shelter in place there, and we didn't get an email about it. So I was just wondering if there was a flip-flop or something happened there.
Okay. So let's take your questions in the order that they...
I have two more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, please.
The boiler slippage, I mean, obviously, you don't want to have to go spend $6,500 for a temporary boiler. I doubt you planned for it that way. There must have been some slippage in the construction project. that would, require us having that as a backup, and what caused the delays?
Okay.
And last but not least, can you talk to us about Sharon Smith, CST, is getting additional comprehensive reading evaluations and recommendations. What kind of tests? What's the name of the program? Is this just to reinforce her current skills, or is she learning something new?
Okay, let's go back in the order that you asked. Policies are not a matter of public record. They're on the website.
They're posted under exhibits, under administration, right?
Right now, that one, this group is, okay, great.
Okay. The October 8th trip, does anyone know about that? And you said fifth grade.
Yeah.
I think it might have been a makeup from last year.
I'm sorry?
It might have been one class making it up from last year when they missed it, but I could be wrong.
Then that would be sixth graders going instead
Well,
of
no,
fifth
that
graders?
doesn't make sense, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We can find out.
Okay.
The students do, we can find out. Different homerooms go at different days. So
Yes.
it might have been that a homeroom was left off.
Right, but it does, that's not what it says here. I wondered if that was the case, so maybe somebody could let me know, because
Okay, the shelter in place.
Ridgewood Avenue had an actual shelter in place, which when we have an actual shelter in place, I do notify the public. When there are drills, I do not notify the public. I believe the high school today had a shelter in place drill.
okay, got it.
Okay, and the boiler delays. You want to address that, Paul?
Certainly. So, this, as we described earlier, is a precautionary measure. In the event that we don't have an operational boiler, we're doing this. Meaning, this time, we don't know as of yet. It's a contract.
But did your original project plan call for, budget for a boiler for slippage? Usually you plan it enough so that if it happens on time, you don't need to budget that in.
So,
And-
it's unclear as of now who is responsible, who will take responsibility for the cost of the boiler. The contractor is unable to perform according to the contract. It's conceivable that they will be liable for that expense.
Okay, so there has been slippage, is what you're saying.
No, I'm not suggesting that there has been some.
Well, why would you bring in an extra boiler
As
there?
So we're ready in case
As
there
I
is.
described.
If you were done in time, you wouldn't need that because there'd be a window. But I get it, it's better than the children
It's
being
a
cold.
Precautionary measure.
Did you budget for that?
We have sufficient budget.
Did you budget originally for it? Don't make me parse my words, I'm just asking.
I think we.
Do not.
I think the question's been answered.
No, did you budget for it?
We budgeted for every conceivable contingency.
Right.
And now moving on to Sharon Smith, CST. And
It's a workshop. So many teachers go on a workshop to either learn new technique strategies or to enhance strategies that they're aware of, and they just want to get into deeper content.
So you don't know if the name of the particular reading program she's studying, or if it's new, or something, some skills she's just refreshing?
I'd have to look at it.
Okay, I'll look forward to hearing from you.
I think we can't answer that at this time. Thank you. Any other public questions or comments on agenda or other items? That being the case, may I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Teresa, may I have a second?
Second.
Second from Paul. Thank you all.